welcome to your deep dive. So we're diving into the world of open data and its connection to building trustworthy AI. It looks like you've sent us some fascinating stuff, really focusing on the ethical considerations around AI. And what's really hot right now, the role of open data in all of this.
Absolutely. It's interesting how we tend to think about AI as, this very, very complex technology, which of course it is, but the fuel, the data, is something that we can all have an impact on. And the material that you sent really points to how open data could be a real game changer in making sure AI develops ethically.
Okay, you've definitely got my attention.
Yeah.
But let me back up for a second. For those who are just tuning in, can we define open data? What does that even mean?
Yeah, that's a great starting point. It's basically like, imagine a public library, right? But for information. It's data that anyone can access, use, modify, and share for any purpose.
Okay, so less about dusty bookshelves, more about data sets on .well, everything.
Exactly. It could be anything and everything. And just like you can check out a book on astrophysics or ancient history, open data can be used in so many ways. Your sources focus on its potential to make AI systems more transparent, more accountable.
So are we saying open data provides the foundation for ethical AI? How does that even work?
It does. Think about it this way. Imagine trying to understand a recipe, but you have no idea what the ingredients are. Open data is like that ingredient list for AI. It lets anyone see, analyze the data that shapes AI decisions. And this transparency is super important if we want to catch problems like bias, for example.
That's a good point. If we can't see the data, how can we be sure the AI is making, fair and impartial choices? Kind of like building a house, you need that strong foundation. Open data provides that for ethical AI.
Exactly. And with that transparency comes accountability. When that data is open, it's easier to hold developers responsible for what their AI models do. So it encourages a more responsible process from the very beginning.
Okay, so we're talking more transparency, more accountability, huge wins when it comes to ethical AI. Are there other benefits? Your research mentioned some interesting real-world applications.
Oh, absolutely. Let's take the criminal justice system. By using open data sets of past cases, things like sentencing guidelines, AI can actually help pinpoint and even correct for potential bias in, judicial processes.
So you're saying an AI that's trained on this open data, it could actually help make court rulings fairer, more impartial. That's a powerful thought. What would that look like in practice?
It's about analyzing the data, right? Looking for patterns. For instance, open data could show if certain groups consistently get harsher sentences for the same crimes. And armed with that knowledge, developers can try to mitigate that bias, right? Push for AI models that support fairer sentencing overall.
Wow, that's really incredible. Sounds like open data has the potential to make a real difference in people's lives. And your research also touched on healthcare, am I right?
Yes. It's another great example. Imagine you have a medical AI, but it's only trained on a limited set of data. That AI might be more likely to misdiagnose conditions that are more common in certain populations just because the data didn't reflect that diversity in the first place. Open data, with its potential for these large-scale inclusive data sets, can help avoid that, leading to more accurate and equitable healthcare.
That makes sense. More diverse data, more accurate AI. And it's not just about being accurate or fair. What about those large-scale challenges? Your research highlighted environmental science, right?
Exactly. One of the sources you sent talked about how open data on things like climate patterns and ecosystem health can be used to create AI models that can predict natural disasters with much better accuracy.
So it's like having a clearer crystal ball to see these environmental challenges coming. That's amazing. Are there any concrete examples of how this is being used right now?
Oh, tons of initiatives. For example, there are groups that are using open data to track, deforestation in the Amazon rainforest. So they're feeding things like satellite imagery, environmental data into these AI models, and it helps them pinpoint high-risk areas, maybe even predict where illegal logging might happen next.
That's incredible. It's like open data is giving us the tools to be proactive instead of reactive when it comes to environmental protection.
Exactly. And this is really just the tip of the iceberg. What's really fascinating is how these benefits aren't limited to, say, huge organizations.
It's amazing to see the impact of open data in action. But this all sounds, pretty high level. Is open data really only for these big organizations with tons of resources? Can smaller players get in on this?
That's a really, really important point. And one of the coolest things about open data is that it can actually level the playing field, especially when it comes to AI.
So it's like democratizing access to the tools, the building blocks of AI, so smaller companies, startups, even individuals can contribute.
Exactly. Think of it as like opening up innovation to everyone, right? Instead of it being stuck in, I don't know, a few labs with tons of funding, open data lets so many more people participate. And this inclusivity, it's huge if we want a more diverse and innovative AI landscape.
It makes sense. More voices, more ideas, better solutions.
Yeah.
But, and maybe this is a big but, with all this talk about being open, accessible, what about privacy, security? Those seem like huge concerns when you're talking about making data so widely available.
You are so right to bring that up. It's a critical point. It's not about, just making everything public. It's about that balance, finding that sweet spot between openness and, responsibility.
Okay, so how do we find that balance? How do we protect sensitive information while still, getting all the benefits of open data?
That's where things like frameworks and guidelines are really important. Data anonymization techniques, for example, are super important. That's all about removing or changing any information that could identify someone before that data is made public.
So blurring faces in a photo or using, fake names to protect identities.
Exactly. It's about protecting people while still making that data useful. Of course, anonymization isn't perfect, and there are always conversations happening about, the challenges and limitations.
It sounds like a constant evolution, right? Finding that right balance. Are there any other ways we, safeguard against misuse of open data?
For sure. Things like secure data sharing platforms. Imagine a digital vault with layers of security, making sure only the right people get access.
And I'd imagine having clear guidelines for using the data is also key, so everyone's on the same page.
Absolutely. It's all about creating a culture of responsibility around this data.
It's good to hear. Though it does seem like it's, an ongoing conversation, adapting to new challenges, new tech, all the time.
Definitely. And it's not just happening in one place. This is global. That global open data and AI summit, the one you sent over, that just shows how seriously people are taking this.
Yeah. Even though, obviously, we can't time travel back to 2025 for that. But it sounds like a really important event. What were some of the big takeaways?
One of the biggest themes was this need for global collaboration, shared standards when it comes to open data and AI ethics.
So not just each country or company doing their own thing, but finding common ground, working together to make sure these ethical practices are happening everywhere.
Yes. Recognizing that this stuff, AI, it impacts everyone. So we need a global response, a global effort.
It's like we're all in this together, right?
Yeah.
All stakeholders in this rapidly evolving world of AI.
Exactly. And like any powerful tool, it all comes down to using it responsibly, ethically.
It's definitely both exciting and honestly a little overwhelming to think about how big this really is. We're at this crucial point, and the decisions we make now will have a ripple effect.
I totally agree. It's a huge moment. And while, these summits and policies are super important, we can't forget that shaping the future of AI, it's not just on governments or big tech companies.
That's a good point. Makes it feel less, intimidating. But then what about the average person? What can someone who's not a coder or a politician, what can they do?
A lot, actually. Even small things make a difference. It starts with awareness, right? Just being informed about this stuff, open data, how it can be used, the ethical questions around AI, that's step one.
So, with so many things, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more we get it, the better we can, talk about it, advocate for responsible development.
Exactly. And then supporting those organizations, the ones pushing for open data and ethical AI, they're doing the hard work. Fighting for transparency, accountability.
It's there are so many ways to get involved, even if it's just starting a conversation with, friends, family. Every voice matters. Wow, this deep dive has been eye-opening. I feel like I had a crash course on open data and ethical AI and how they're all connected.
That's amazing to hear. It really is a fascinating field, and it's changing all the time. And the more we explore it, talk about it, the better we'll be at using AI for good,
It does feel like we're just scratching the surface here, which is pretty exciting. So, to everyone listening, as you dig more into these sources, here's something to think about. If data is what fuels AI, what kind of future do we want to power? It's a big question, but it's at the heart of all of this.